The wine glass shook in Arya's hand as she watched Alessandro Alex Zanetti lean forward. His signature on the $50 million contract was just inches away from the paper. Her heart pounded in her chest as she saw the chemical formula glowing on the Russian's tablet screen. It was the same formula that would turn his super-strong metal protection into death traps within 30 days. She had spent 3 years hiding her PhD in materials chemistry. 3 years serving wine instead of creating amazing metal mixtures. 3 years praying her former company hunters would never find her. But watching Alex about to sign his own death warrant, she realized some secrets were worth the risk. "That's the wrong formula," she whispered, her voice barely heard over the restaurant's classical music. Alex's steel-gray eyes snapped to hers, and in that moment, everything changed. If you want to discover how this story began and what happened after this life-changing moment, subscribe to the channel and leave in the comments where you're watching from. Each view helps bring more stories like this one. 3 hours earlier, Arya Vilov had been invisible, exactly how she liked it. In her black uniform and white apron, she moved through Romano's, the fanciest Italian restaurant in Manhattan, like a shadow among the city's rich people. Billionaires, politicians, and men whose names appeared in newspapers for all the wrong reasons ate here, never noticing the woman who refilled their wine glasses. She preferred being unnoticed. After running away from Titan Defense Corporation 3 years ago, being invisible meant staying alive. The morning had started like any other. Arya had woken in her tiny studio apartment in Queens, the same apartment where she'd lived since leaving her 6-figure salary and her corner office overlooking the Hudson River. The walls were bare except for a single photo, her graduation from MIT, where she'd earned her doctorate in materials chemistry at 25, the youngest in her program's history. Sometimes she stared at that photo and wondered if the smart young woman in the cap and gown would recognize the person she'd become. Dr. Arya Volkov had been meant for greatness. Her research into advanced metal mixtures was amazing enough to change modern warfare. But that woman had died the night she discovered Titan Defense was selling her flawed formulas to the highest bidder no matter what happened. The woman who remained was just Arya, a waitress who spoke 4 languages, held 3 degrees, and could calculate molecular structures in her head while balancing 6 wine glasses on a tray. "Table 7 needs the Barolo," called Marcus the head waiter, pulling Arya from her thoughts. She glanced toward the private dining room and her blood went cold. Table 7 wasn't just any table. It was Alessandro Zanetti's table. Everyone in the city knew Alex Zanetti, even if they pretended not to. At 32, he commanded respect that money couldn't buy and fear that power couldn't purchase. His perfectly fitted Armani suits couldn't hide the dangerous edge that made grown men stutter, and his rare smiles never reached those calculating gray eyes. The newspapers called him a legitimate businessman with alleged connections to organized crime. The truth was simpler and more scary. Alex Zanetti was the most powerful man in New York, and everyone knew it. Arya had served him twice before. Both times she'd kept her head down, poured his wine, and disappeared. He'd never looked at her, really looked, and she wanted to keep it that way. Men like Alex Zanetti noticed details, and details could get a woman with secrets killed. But tonight felt different. As she walked toward the private dining room with the vintage Barolo, she heard voices speaking in rapid Italian. Alex sat at the head of the mahogany table, his presence commanding even in stillness. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his jaw clean-shaven, and his gray eyes held the kind of intelligence that missed nothing. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Arya made in 6 months, and a watch that could have paid her rent for a year. Across from him, a thin man with pale skin and nervous eyes held a tablet like a lifeline. Everything about the stranger screamed desperation, from his badly fitting suit to the way his hands shook as he spoke. "The formula is revolutionary, Mr. Zanetti," the Russian said in accented English. "This metal mixture will make your vehicles and properties truly impossible to break through. 50 million is a small price for such protection." Arya's hand froze on the door handle. Formula, metal alloy. Her scientific mind immediately perked up, despite her efforts to stay disconnected from her past life. She'd spent years training herself not to react to scientific discussions, not to show the slightest interest in the field that had once been her entire world. She entered quietly, professional smile in place. "Your Burlo, Mr. Zanetti." Alex's eyes flicked to her briefly, a dismissive glance that should have made her feel better. Instead, something flickered in his gaze, gone too quickly to understand. But just for a moment she felt exposed, as if those steel-gray eyes could see straight through her carefully built fake life. "Grazie," he murmured, his voice like velvet over steel. As she poured, the Russian continued his sales pitch, tilting the tablet screen. "See here, the molecular structure is unlike anything currently available. The pulling strength is extraordinary. The heat resistance unmatched. Your enemy's bullets will bounce off like raindrops." Arya's world stopped. The formula on the screen burned into her eyes. A complex arrangement of titanium, vanadium, and rare earth elements that she recognized right away. Not because it was amazing, but because it was deadly flawed. She'd seen this exact formula 2 years ago during her final project at Titan Defense. It had been Dr. Petrov's pride and joy until testing showed the horrible truth. The metal mixture broke down terribly after 30 days, turning from diamond hard to glass brittle without warning. The test model had shattered during a routine test, sending metal pieces through reinforced glass. The lab had been destroyed and 3 researchers had been sent to the hospital. If Alex used this for protection, her hands moved automatically, continuing to pour wine while her mind raced through what this meant. The formula looked perfect on paper. The molecular bonds appeared stable. The theoretical strength calculations were impressive. But she knew what the computer models couldn't predict. The way repeated stress cycling would weaken the crystalline structure, how temperature changes would speed up the breaking down process. "The deal is acceptable," Alex said, reaching for his pen. $50 million for exclusive rights." Arya's scientific mind tried to process what was happening, but terror was taking over logic. "They're here for me," she whispered. "They're here for both of us," Alex corrected grimly. "But mostly you." Glass shattered somewhere in the restaurant, and Arya realized her old life. Warya's hand shook as she finished pouring. She should walk away. Should disappear back into her safe, invisible life. Should let the dangerous man make his dangerous mistake. But as Alex's fingers closed around the pen, she saw something that shattered her resolve. A small photo tucked into his jacket pocket, a little girl with dark curls and Alex's gray eyes, maybe 5 years old, smiling at the camera with the innocent joy that only children had. He had a daughter who would ride in cars protected by metal that would fail without warning. A daughter who might be in one of those vehicles when the 30-day countdown reached 0. Arya thought of the soldiers who had died because of Titan Defense's greed, their families who would never know the truth about why their loved one's armor had failed. She thought of the researchers in that lab, the terror in their eyes as metal pieces flew like bullets through the air. She couldn't let it happen again. The pen touched the paper just as Arya made the choice that would change everything. "That's the wrong formula." The words escaped her lips before she could stop them. Barely a whisper, but loud enough to freeze every person in the room. Alex's hands stopped mid-signature. The Russian's face went white. The 2 bodyguards by the door shifted, hands moving toward their jackets with practiced speed. Slowly, Alex raised his head, those steel-gray eyes locking onto hers with a strength that made her knees weak. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Excuse me?" His voice was quiet, controlled, but Arya could hear the danger hiding beneath the surface. Arya's mouth went dry. There was no going back now. 3 years of hiding, 3 years of safety, all destroyed by 4 whispered words. "The formula, sir, it's incorrect." The Russian sputtered, his tablet nearly slipping from his shaking hands. "This is outrageous. Who is this woman? She's a waitress, a nobody." But Alex never looked away from Arya. He set down his pen with careful precision, his movements controlled and predatory. Every instinct she had screamed at her to run, but his gaze held her frozen in place. "How would a waitress know anything about metallurgical formulas?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. The gesture might have seemed casual to someone watching, but Arya recognized it for what it was: the focused attention of a top predator studying its prey. The question hung in the air like a blade. Arya felt her carefully built new life crumbling around her, but the image of that little girl's smile kept her grounded. Some things were worth giving up everything for. Because, she said, her voice stronger now, I have a PhD in materials chemistry from MIT, and that formula will kill you. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the background sounds of the restaurant seemed to fade away, leaving only the pounding of her own heartbeat in her ears. Alex leaned back in his chair, studying her with the focus of a scientist examining a fascinating new specimen. Interesting. And you're telling me this? Why? The honest answer, because she'd seen his daughter's photo, felt too vulnerable to say out loud. Instead, she said, because in 30 days that indestructible metal mixture will become as fragile as glass. The molecular bonds break down under stress cycling. I've seen it happen. She turned to the Russian, whose face had gone from white to green. Dr. Petrov developed this at Titan Defense, didn't he? Before the project was stopped. The Russian's tablet clattered to the table. How could you possibly? Because I was there, Arya said simply. I was part of the team that discovered the fatal flaw. 3 researchers were sent to the hospital when the test model shattered during testing. The lab was destroyed. Alex stood slowly, his 6'3" frame unfolding with deadly grace. He walked around the table until he stood directly in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Expensive, masculine, dangerous. Close enough that she could see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes, the faint scar along his jawline that spoke of a violent past. What's your name? His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. Arya Vilov. Your real name? She hesitated, then lifted her chin defiantly. 3 years of hiding had taught her many things, but backing down from intimidation wasn't one of them. Dr. Arya Volkov, former senior material scientist at Titan Defense Corporation. Something shifted in Alex's expression, surprise, calculation, and something else she couldn't identify. Interest perhaps, or recognition. Former. I left when I discovered the company was selling flawed formulas to the highest bidder, no matter what happened. The words came out bitter, weighted with 3 years of guilt and anger. 17 soldiers died because their armor failed in the field. Dozens more were injured. All because Titan Defense rushed broken products to market. The Russian suddenly lunged for his tablet, but one of Alex's bodyguards was faster, slamming a hand down on the device with enough force to crack the screen. The sound echoed through the room like a gunshot. Going somewhere, Dmitri? Alex asked without turning around, his attention still focused entirely on Arya. This is a misunderstanding, Dmitri stammered, sweat forming on his forehead. The formula is sound, I promise you. This woman is clearly crazy. Shut up. Alex's voice cut through the air like a whip. His eyes never left Arya's face. You just saved me $50 million and possibly my life. Why? The question was simple, but Arya sensed that her answer would determine everything that happened next. In Alex's world, nothing was done without a reason, without calculation. Helping others for no reason was a foreign concept. Kindness, a weakness to be used against you. But looking into his eyes, she decided to tell the truth. Because it was the right thing to do. Alex studied her for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then he turned to his men. Escort Mr. Petrov out. Permanently. The word, permanently, carried meanings that made Arya's blood run cold. As the Russian was dragged away, protesting his innocence and begging for mercy, Alex moved closer to her. She could feel the heat coming from his body, could see the way his suit stretched across his broad shoulders. Do you realize what you've done? He asked softly. Prevented a catastrophic materials failure? A ghost of a smile touched his lips, the first genuine expression she'd seen from him. You've made yourself invaluable to a very dangerous man. Before she could respond, the restaurant's lights suddenly went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in hellish red. Alex's hand shot out, gripping her arm as shouts erupted from the main dining room. His touch was firm but not painful, protective rather than restraining. Dimitri's friends don't like being embarrassed, Alex murmured, his body shifting to shield her from the doorway. And now they know you can identify their flawed products. Glass shattered somewhere in the restaurant, followed by screams. What? The Russians aren't the only ones who want you dead. Your former company has sent the only thing that had just died. Her safety had died with it. Stay behind me, Alex commanded, his voice deadly calm as he pulled a gun from his shoulder holster. The change from businessman to predator was instant and terrifying. Arya's scientific mind noticed details even as terror flooded her system. The way Alex moved with deadly precision, how his bodyguards appeared from shadows she hadn't known they occupied, the sound of her own heartbeat drowning out the chaos in the main dining room. The gun in Alex's hand wasn't some movie prop. It was real, black, and looked like it had been used before. Everything about the way he held it spoke of familiarity, of a man who had killed and would kill again without hesitation. The kitchen, one of the bodyguards reported through an earpiece, his voice crackling with static. 3 men, armed, moving toward the private dining rooms. Professional gear, military-grade weapons. Alex's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath the skin. Dmitri's cleanup crew. They can't afford to let Dr. Vilov live. Not when she can expose their entire operation. The weight of her situation crashed over Arya like a huge wave. By saving Alex, she'd painted a target on her own back. The Russian mob wouldn't just kill her. They'd make her disappear so completely that no one would ever know what happened to the brilliant scientist who'd once dreamed of making the world safer. I need to get out of here, she whispered, backing toward the window. The glass stretched from floor to ceiling, offering a view of the city lights 30 floors below. Even if she could break it, there was nowhere to go. No. Alex's hand closed around her wrist, gentle but unbreakable. You run now, you'll be dead within the hour. They have your face, your name, and now they know your value. Then what? The door exploded inward in a shower of splinters and smoke. Alex moved like lightning, shoving Arya behind the overturned table as bullets shattered the wine bottles above their heads. The air filled with the sharp smell of gunpowder and spilled Barolo, the expensive vintage mixing with her terror to create a sickening cocktail. The attackers moved with military precision, their black tactical gear making them look like death itself. Arya pressed herself against the floor, her hands covering her head as bullets whined overhead. 2 on the left, 1 flanking right, Alex called to his men, his voice steady despite the chaos. He looked back at Arya, his gray eyes intense. When I say run, you go through that door behind you. Don't stop. Don't look back. What about you? Something flickered across his face, surprise at her concern maybe, or something deeper. In his world, people didn't worry about his safety. They worried about their own. I'll be right behind you. The firefight lasted 30 seconds that felt like 30 years. Alex moved with deadly grace, his shots precise and economical. When the shooting stopped, 3 bodies lay motionless on the restaurant floor, and Alex hauled Arya to her feet, his hands checking her for injuries with surprising gentleness. You're bleeding, she noticed, seeing red seeping through his white shirt near his shoulder. Grazie move. They ran through the restaurant's back hallways, past terrified kitchen staff huddled behind steel prep tables and overturned chairs. Alex's hand never left the small of her back, guiding and protecting at the same time. His touch was warm, steady, reassuring in a way that made no sense given what was happening. In the alley behind Romano's, a black SUV waited with the engine running. Alex bundled her into the back seat, sliding in beside her as his driver sped away from the curb with professional skill. Safe house, Alex ordered, then turned to Arya. In the passing street lights, she could see that his face was pale, his breathing slightly difficult. The wound was worse than he'd let on. You're hurt, she said, reaching toward his shoulder. He caught her hand, his fingers warm against hers. I'm fine. You're not fine. You need medical attention. What I need, he said quietly, is to keep you alive. You're under my protection now. I didn't ask for your protection. You didn't ask to be hunted by the Russian mob either, but here we are. His voice softened slightly, and she caught a glimpse of the man beneath the dangerous exterior. Arya, they won't stop. You know too much about their operation, And now they know you can identify their flawed products. You're a threat they can't afford to ignore. The reality of her situation settled over her like a burial cloth. Her quiet life, her anonymity, her safety, all of it was gone, destroyed by 4 whispered words and a moment of conscience. So what happens now? Alex was quiet for a long moment, studying her face in the passing street lights. Now you disappear. New identity, new life, somewhere they'll never find you. And you? I make sure they never get the chance to look. The SUV pulled up to a tall glass building in Midtown, its sleek front reflecting the city lights like a mirror. As they rode the private elevator to the penthouse, Arya caught her reflection in the mirrored walls, disheveled, terrified, but alive. "Why are you helping me?" she asked as the elevator climbed smoothly upward. Alex was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Because you saved my life without knowing who I was or what I could do for you. In my world, that kind of honesty is rarer than diamonds." The elevator opened into a stunning penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, but Arya barely noticed the luxury. Her attention was caught by the photos scattered across the coffee table, photos of the little girl she'd glimpsed in Alex's pocket, but also photos of Alex himself, laughing as he pushed the child on a swing, reading her a bedtime story, teaching her to ride a bike. In these pictures, he looked younger, softer, like a completely different person. "Your daughter," she said softly. Alex's entire manner changed, walls slamming down behind his eyes. "Sophia. She's 5. She's beautiful. She's everything." His voice was raw with emotion he couldn't quite hide. "The metal you saved me from buying, it would have been used in her car, her school, everywhere I need to keep her safe." Understanding crashed over Arya like a wave. "That's why you're helping me. Because I protected her without even knowing she existed." Alex moved to the window, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. "My father died when a rival family's bomb went off in his supposedly bulletproof car. The metal failed. Sophia will never face that fate. Not while I'm alive to prevent it." Arya joined him at the window, close enough to see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "I'm sorry about your father. He made choices that led to his death. I make different choices." He turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw past the dangerous exterior to the man beneath, protective, haunted, carrying the weight of keeping his daughter safe in a world that wanted to destroy everything he loved. "Arya," he said quietly, "I need you to know something. Been hunting you for 3 years, and now they know exactly where you are." The blood drained from Arya's face. "That's impossible. I covered my tracks, changed my identity. Your facial recognition software triggered the moment you entered Romano's tonight," Alex said grimly, pulling out his phone to show her a news alert. "Titan Defense Corporation just issued a statement claiming you stole secret formulas worth hundreds of millions. They're offering a $50 million bounty for your capture." Arya's legs gave out. She sank onto the leather couch, her brilliant mind racing through what this meant. "They're going to say I sold the formula to the Russians, that I'm a traitor." "Worse." Alex sat beside her, his presence both comforting and electric. "They're claiming you sabotaged their projects. That soldiers died because of your deliberate flaws in their armor." "That's a lie." The words exploded from her. "I left because they were selling broken products. I tried to stop them." "I know." His voice was gentle but urgent. "But the world doesn't. And now every bounty hunter, government agent, and company assassin in the country is looking for you." As if summoned by his words, Alex's phone buzzed with an incoming call. His face darkened as he read the display, a number he clearly recognized and didn't want to see. "What is it?" Arya asked, fear creeping into her voice. "My security team at Sophia's school." He answered immediately, his voice sharp with concern. "Talk to me." Arya watched his face shift from concern to cold fury as he listened to the voice on the other end. His free hand clenched into a fist, and she could see the muscles in his jaw working as he fought to stay in control. "How many?" he asked curtly. "When?" "No, don't engage. Fall back to Protocol 7 and wait for my signal." He hung up and turned to Arya, his gray eyes blazing with a fury that made her blood run cold. "What happened?" she whispered. 3 black SUVs just pulled up to Sophia's private school. Company plates. "They're not here for me. They're here for leverage." The room spun around Arya. "They're going after your daughter because of me. They're going after my daughter because they're desperate." Alex was already moving, grabbing weapons from a hidden panel in the wall. Titan Defense knows that if this story breaks, if the world learns they've been selling broken armor to the military, they'll face treason charges. They need you silenced permanently. "Then let me go to them." "Let me, no." The word cracked like a whip. Alex spun to face her, and she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. Not just determination, but something deeper, more personal. "You saved my life tonight, Arya. Now I save yours. But Sophia is my priority always. But you're under my protection now, and I don't abandon the people I protect." He handed her a bulletproof vest, the weight of it surprising in her hands. "Put this on." As Arya struggled with the unfamiliar straps, Alex made rapid phone calls, his voice switching between English and Italian as he coordinated with his men. She caught fragments. "Perimeter secure. Extraction route. Eliminate all threats." The efficiency was terrifying. In minutes, Alex had mobilized what sounded like a small army, all focused on protecting a 5-year-old girl and the woman who had saved her father's life. "Alex," she said when he finished, "I need you to know something." He looked up from checking his weapon, his movements precise and practiced. "What?" "The formula they're claiming I stole, it wasn't just broken armor. It was the key to their entire military contract. A new metal mixture that was supposed to revolutionize battlefield protection. When I discovered the flaw, I tried to fix it, but they rushed it to production anyway." Alex's jaw tightened. "How many soldiers?" 17 confirmed deaths, dozens more injured when their armor failed. Tears burned her eyes as she remembered the classified reports she'd seen, the photos of young men and women who had trusted their lives to her work. "I have proof, emails, test results, everything. That's why they want me dead." For a moment, Alex was completely still. Then he moved to her, his hands framing her face with surprising gentleness. "Then we make sure you live to tell that story," he said fiercely. "Those soldiers deserve justice, and you're the only one who can give it to them." His phone buzzed again. This time, his face went white. "They have Sophia." The words hit Arya like a physical blow. "What?" "My men are down. Sophia's been taken." His voice was deadly calm, but she could see the storm raging behind his eyes. "They left a message. You for her. 1 hour." Arya didn't hesitate. "Then let's go." "Absolutely not. Alex, she's 5 years old. I won't let a child suffer because of my choices. And I won't let you walk into a death trap." He grabbed her shoulders, his control finally cracking. "You think I can't see what's happening here? You think I don't know that somewhere between tonight and now, you've become more than just someone I'm protecting?" The admission hung between them, raw and honest. Arya felt her heart skip a beat, but there was no time to process what he'd just revealed. "Then you understand why I have to do this," she said softly. "Because somewhere between tonight and now, you've become more than just someone I saved." Alex stared at her for a long moment, then pulled her against him, his arms wrapping around her like he could shield her from the world. She could feel his heart beating against her chest, could smell his cologne mixed with the metallic smell of blood from his wound. "There's another way," he murmured against her hair. "But it's dangerous, and it requires you to trust me completely." "I trust you." He pulled back to look at her, and she saw the exact moment he made his decision. "Then we're going to give them exactly what they want, and destroy them in the process." The plan was insane, brilliant, and terrifying in equal measure. Alex would deliver Arya to the exchange point as requested, but not before his men had surrounded the entire area. Hidden snipers, electronic surveillance, escape routes, everything had been planned down to the second. "The moment they have you, they'll try to kill us both," Alex explained as they drove through the city. "They can't afford to let either of us live." "So how do we survive?" "We don't just survive," Alex said grimly. We end this tonight. The exchange point was an abandoned warehouse in Queens, the kind of place where people disappeared and were never found again. As their SUV pulled up to the building, Arya could see other vehicles in the shadows, Titan defenses, people waiting. Remember, Alex said, checking his weapon one final time, no matter what happens, no matter what they say or do, you stay alive until I can get to you. What about Sophia? She's my daughter. I'll get her back. They walked into the warehouse together, Arya's hands zip-tied behind her back to keep up the appearance of capture. The space was huge and empty, lit only by harsh fluorescent lights that made everything look stark. Sophia was there, tied to a chair in the center of the space, her dark curls falling around her face. She looked so small, so fragile, but her gray eyes, so like her father's, were defiant rather than afraid. Daddy, she called when she saw Alex, and Arya's heart broke at the relief in the little girl's voice. I'm here, princess, Alex called back, his voice steady despite the fury radiating from every line of his body. The man in charge stepped forward, company suit, cold eyes, the kind of executive who ordered deaths from behind a mahogany desk. Dr. Vilov, you've caused us considerable trouble. Good, Arya said simply. You have something that belongs to us. Research formulas, evidence that could damage our reputation. You mean evidence that could send you to prison for treason? The executive smiled coldly. Semantics. You're going to give us everything you have, and then you're going to disappear permanently. And if I refuse? Then the child dies first and you watch. That's when Alex made his move. The warehouse erupted into chaos as his men struck from every angle. Gunfire echoed off the concrete walls as Alex fought his way towards Sophia, his movements deadly and precise. Arya threw herself to the ground as bullets flew overhead, her hands still bound behind her back. She watched Alex move like a force of nature, unstoppable in his determination to reach his daughter. When the shooting stopped, most of Titan Defense's people were dead or captured. The executive lay on the concrete floor, his expensive suit stained with blood, begging for mercy that would never come. Alex cut Sophia's bonds and pulled her into his arms, his hands shaking as he checked her for injuries. Are you hurt, princess? I'm okay, Daddy. I was brave, just like you taught me. You were perfect, he whispered, pressing his face against her hair. Then he looked at Arya, still bound on the warehouse floor, and she saw something in his eyes that took her breath away. It's over, he said simply. You're safe now, both of you. 2 years later, Arya stood in the garden of Alex's estate in the Hamptons, watching Sophia chase butterflies among the roses. The little girl's laughter filled the air like music, a sound that never failed to make Arya's heart swell with joy. Dr. Vilov. Sophia called, running over with a flower clutched in her small fist. Is this one poisonous? Arya knelt down, accepting the dandelion with mock seriousness. Completely harmless, sweetheart, but very beautiful. Like you, Sophia said matter-of-factly, then skipped away to continue her exploration. The congressional hearing had lasted 6 months. Arya's testimony, backed by the evidence she'd hidden for 3 years, had brought down Titan Defense Corporation. 17 families finally had answers about their loved ones' deaths, and new safety rules made sure it would never happen again. And Alex had kept his promise. He protected her, saved Sophia, and somehow in the process, they'd built something neither of them had expected to find. Penny for your thoughts, his voice said behind her. Arya leaned back against his chest as his arms wrapped around her waist. Just thinking about how much has changed. Any regrets? She turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd transformed from dangerous stranger to protector to the love of her life. Only one. His eyebrows rose. What's that? I wish I'd whispered louder that night at Romano's. Might have saved us some trouble. Alex laughed, the sound rich and warm. Trouble? You call falling in love with you trouble? The best kind, she said, rising on her toes to kiss him. This story reached its end. If it touched your heart in some way, leave your like and share it with someone who also enjoys thrilling stories. New stories are coming soon. Until next time.